Hello, good afternoon. Here I am making a video, but today's video is more of a rant about seeing this unprecedented media flow of energy crisis in Mauritius, surrounded by water crisis in Mauritius, and the Central Electricity Board with the Ministry of Energy and Public Utilities and all its associated organizations like Mauritius Renewable Energy Agency, all crying out for solutions, looking outside of the box for solutions, but outside of the country for solutions, listening to those constant flow of salesmen pattering along their aisles and corridors and sitting in front of them and saying, you should buy this and you should buy this and you should try this and you should try this. But at no time do they look within. No time have they looked within their own borders or their own boundaries to see what solutions are already available. And one of the things I've learned about living life, in order to understand the depth of our issues, the depth of our soul, the depth of our problems, we need to look within. We need to understand why it is the way it is. And these require brave, conscious decisions to want to delve into the understanding of why it is the way it is. And I've been fortunate to have been invited here. My company was answering a call for proposals by the Mauritius Renewable Energy Agency, along with the Central Electricity Board and Mauritius Research and Innovation Council, for innovative solutions to address the imbalance in the grid, to address renewable energy solutions that they could get behind and allow pilot projects to proceed. That's my context, and that's my truth. And in 2020, our project, the Tesla's Cascading Hydropower project, was approved by Mauritius Renewable Energy Agency. It signed an agreement with the Central Electricity Board to supply energy to the grid. It successfully obtained an EIA license, Supreme Court approval under the Rivers and Canals Act 1863, perhaps one of the oldest statutes on the books of Mauritius, claiming and proclaiming the rivers as domain public property. In addition, it received approvals or no objections from 12 different authorities. I've obtained a provisional energy generation permit for the project to proceed. The team and investors have invested 1.1 million euros in a project that was originally supposed to cost 350,000 euros and 1 year. And here we are in 2025, still without a completed project, with a whole host of issues surrounding authorities that we've pleaded and begged to apply legislation. We asked the old Minister of Energy and Public Utilities to meet with us 5 times. We've asked the new Energy Minister to meet with us in January. We've asked the Minister of the Environment, current Minister of Environment, to meet with us to discuss the state of the rivers, in particular the River Tamarin, where we can show with evidence, with photographs, with maps, with aerial pictures, over a series of decades, nearly a century, if not more, the way the river has been abused, how it's been overtaken by landowners, how nature, a public resource, that belongs to the people is being overwritten by private landowners and construction sites, and the river is in a tremendously poor state of existence. At some times of the year, the river doesn't flow at all because of the irrigation takeoff, or because of the hydropower station upstream, or because the hydropower station goes offline. And during cyclone season, the river floods. The river breaks its banks and sends torrents of sediment into the ocean. We have all the pictures, we have all the evidence, we have all the facts. And I say this as somebody that takes his duty, his responsibility as a guardian of the domain public. My company has been given permission under the Rivers and Canals Act of 1863 to carry out its construction. We have obligations. We are authorized in law to do what we are doing. We are authorized in all other legislations to complete the project and to comply with certain regulations, including the environment. Where we haven't needed to carry out works that would cause trees to be felled, we've done so, and we've preserved trees. And we see the landscape changing. We see the dynamics of the river. We are at one with the river, my team and I. We've had to adapt and adjust and think out of the box for solutions. We've had to fly in using a crane, our turbine into the river. We had to fly in an excavator using a crane into the river. We had to fly in using a crane building materials to complete the construction. We've shown that innovative spirit. We've shown that commitment and obligation to reaching our conclusion. And when we've called upon the authorities who've given us permission to assist us in our quest to completing the mission, we are told no, or there's no answer. When we highlight issues that are of a criminal nature, like trees being cut by the electricity board and the tree branches being left in the river, causing damage and impact to our construction, nothing is done. Absolutely nothing is done. We have documentary evidence of 4 years. Every year, trees are felled in front of our project site and the trees are left in the river. This is a criminal offence under 3 different legislations, but nothing is done. And we are left in this perpetual circle of incompetence, of ignorance, of arrogance, and the inability to make a decision because of who it may or may not impact. And I wonder who really is driving the energy sector of Mauritius when you have 40% or more being generated by the private sector. And when we look at the history of electricity in Mauritius, the pioneers were the Acha brothers. And very quickly, over a period of 30 or 40 years, the whole industry was taken over by commercialists, by capitalists, by Franco-Mauritian businesses who still dominate the landscape today. I've seen an article today about the changes in calls for proposals for this energy solution for the crisis that Mauritius is facing, the energy crisis that has been building for decades and decades, because it has relied heavily on private industry to provide energy. And whose interest is that in? Is it in the state's interest, or is it in the businesses providing the energy's interest? Whose interest is it to bring in a barge or a ship to generate energy off the shores of Mauritius to provide a presumed or an assumed shortage on the energy grid. Is that really the situation in Mauritius? Hydropower that was once 60% of the energy supply in Mauritius is now less than 3%. Our own hydropower project was incorporated in the energy policy, renewable energy policy of the Mauritian government in 2022. It formed part of that roadmap. So the people and the authors of these documents and these projects and these awards see the benefit of my technology and the work that I'm doing. But those that have to carry out the day-to-day follow-up or lack of follow-up are not interested. They're not interested. Why? Who's influencing those people's decisions? Why doesn't the Minister of Energy respond to my request for a meeting? Why doesn't the Deputy Permanent Secretary respond to our request to protect the weir that we have constructed pursuant to legislation? Why hasn't the Water Resources Unit followed up on land slippage around the river after supplying detailed engineering reports? Why? Why do they say that our engineers bear no relevance in Mauritius? Experts. Why are we looking outside of Mauritius for solutions when there's an innovative solution already in Mauritius that has tried and continues to try to evolve and adapt to complete its mission of providing energy to the grid? Why is there no board of directors in the Utilities Regulatory Authority? Why has my request for them to act been sitting on a file since November last year? Why? These authorities are supposed to be independent, and they are allowed to function and continue their work despite the change of government. They're supposedly independent, but they can't function because they have no board. And when they did have a board, the board was all of a sudden, the quorum was lost. Why? What is happening, really? Why, when the electricity goes off at night in Albion, does the lighthouse not light? I've done some research on that, and these signals were called in the 1970s and the 1990s when the system was upgraded at the Albion Lighthouse. It's connected directly to the national grid. When the national grid goes off, there is supposed to be a backup energy system. It doesn't exist. Or if it does exist, it doesn't function. Because I can see the lighthouse from my balcony, and I see when the power goes out that lighthouse also stops shining, which is a breach of all of the regulations at sea. This act alone jeopardizes maritime safety, inshore and offshore. Anyone relying on that lighthouse as a beacon to guide them can't see when there's a power cut. And we can't keep saying that we can rely on GPS. What happens if we're navigating by stars or by lights? These are the backup systems that are supposed to be there. I've seen today this newspaper article in L'Express talking about reshaping energy transition and all these things, but everyone is pushing towards solar energy. There's a conference tomorrow in Eben that's organized by a solar company sponsored by Huawei that only supplies solar and is attended by mostly solar energy companies. Why is there this underlying push for solar power without considering the fact that this is an island? without considering all of the sustainability criteria that's necessary, which begins at the source of goods and source of materials. Where do the materials for solar energy come from? How sustainable are they? How efficient are these panels over a period of 15 to 20 years? And the biggest question of all is, what do we do with them after 15 to 20 years? Or maybe 25 years if we want to push it. We replace them, but what do we do with the old ones? And the geniuses in the room will say, we'll recycle them. But that's an easy answer. A lot of the panels are not recyclable. All of the elements are not recyclable. And then you ask yourself about batteries. What are we going to do with the batteries, the BESS systems that Mauritius has? What happens at the end of life? It's the same logic that needs to be applied to cars that are imported to this country. What do we do at the end of life? We say we're going to recycle them because that's a buzzword and that's a green word and that's a clean word. But this is an island. You have nowhere to store it. You have landfill that is over capacity. All of the warning signs are here and present, but we keep talking about sustainability when we're not sustainable. And I can go on into agricultural practices. I've seen the runoff of the lands in the west coast when it's torrential rain. I've seen the brown water running across the roads. I've seen the soil-laden water running into the rivers. It's just running across the land. It's not being absorbed into the land. And why is that, do you suppose? Is the land saturated? Or is there perhaps, after decades of agricultural of a monocrop, we have created hard pans and therefore the soil is impervious? Where are the scientists? Where are the natural scientists in this equation? What is the direct cause of impervious soil when you're dealing with a monocrop? It's documented, it's scientific. So when we block or create an impervious layer in our soil, we actually stop the water from going into the natural water table, the aquifers, the very aquifers that feed the rivers and recharge the rivers to bring that sustenance. And Mauritius has a water crisis. I live in Albion, where the Minister of Energy and Public Utilities announced earlier this year, after switching on a water filtration system on a piece of Medine land, on a piece of reservoir, they're saying, with this installation, Albion will have water all the time. After the CWA also built over the past few years another large water reservoir a few hundred meters away from the same location. But I live in Albion, I stay in Albion 24/7. I don't have running water from 9 a.m. in the morning until 4 p.m. Between 9 a.m. and 4 p.m. during the day. And again, I don't have water from 9 p.m. until 1 a.m. So 11 hours of the day, there is no running water in Albion. But people have tanks. And when you have no running water, that means that you're relying on tanks, which relies on electricity, which means people have bigger electricity bills, which means a bigger pull on the energy grid. So I'm a simple guy. I'm not complex, but I understand how things work, and I understand cause and effect. So my question is, why is this happening? Why is nobody applying logic? Why is nobody asking those questions about how things are? Why aren't we going back to the simple principles of nature, understanding the hydrological cycle of rivers? If we have all of these crises live, present, and they're only exacerbating every year, why aren't we looking within in order to find the solution. I've just presented many solutions, and I know how to implement them. I've gone above and beyond with my hydropower project. I've now created a hybrid system. I'm still waiting to complete that project, simply because of the landowners around my project that abused the court process, literally abused the court process to prevent me from doing so. They tried to drain my resources. They tried to drain my resolve. They hoped that I would leave Mauritius, or they hoped that our company would go into bankruptcy, or they hoped that we would just give up because we would buckle under the pressure. But we haven't. I'm standing on firm foundations that are solid. They are deeply connected to this country. They are deeply connected to the River Tamarin. And they are deeply connected to this community because I care, because I respect, and because I appreciate everything that it represents. And I'm not afraid to go within to understand where the issues lie. And I'm not afraid to deal with those issues in order to break the chains that prevent evolution. So this is a call to anybody that would like to help me, to join me, to find a way in order to address these solutions in the real world. In particular, it's a call to the Minister of Energy, the Minister of Environment. Please answer my request for a meeting. Don't be afraid. I'm just going to share facts with you. I'm going to show you evidence. And I'm going to show you logic. And I'm going to show you the people that are blocking everything, because I deal with them. If you're ready to have that conversation, feel free to reach out. Thank you very much, one and all. I wish you a pleasant day as the sun is setting behind me on the west coast of Mauritius. Have a great afternoon. Good night. Good night.